When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Two-Footed Podcast here on EPL Index. Now, before we kick things off today, I just want to share something with everybody. This episode is brought to you by our partners at Sky Bet. We've teamed up with Sky Bet because they truly understand what it means to be a fan. Sky Bet appreciates the length that people go through to support their team in all areas, whether you're a match-going fan or otherwise, and there's just no better fit for us right now than a partnership with the good folks at Sky Bet. So with that said, let's go. What's good, boys and girls? Two-Footed Podcast. Today is Wednesday. It is the 5th of June. Hope you're all well and enjoying your week. Today's podcast is brought to you by Sky Bet. And with that in mind, what we're going to start with today is a little bit of Euro 2024 chatter, because Sky Bet have been good enough to send me on the results of the latest fan forum, in which 641 people were polled across a host of questions. I think there are, we've got 23 in the first section and 13 in the second section, which gives us 36, and then 4 in the final section. So we've got 40 questions. We'll run through them and see what people are saying. So, question 1. What formation do you think England should play at Euro 2024? These questions will obviously be mostly England-based. So, the options, 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, 4-4-2, 3-4-3, 3-5-2, other, and don't know. So the don't know, 17%. Why answer the question then? Other, 2%, doesn't tell us what they suggested. 3-5-2, 10%. 3-4-3, 10%. 4-4-2, 19%. So they obviously asked 19% of these people raged over 60. 4-3-3, 20%. And then 4-2-3-1, 22%. So 22% were correct. England should play 4-2-3-1. And at the end, I'll give my suggested England team. Who do you think should start as goalkeeper for England? Pickford, Ramsdale, Trafford, Pope, don't know. Well, Pope isn't even in the squad, and Dean Henderson hasn't been included. So Pickford got 70%. He's obviously going to start. 11% picked Ramsdale, which is mental. 4% said James Trafford, who has no caps, had a bad season and lost his spot in the Burnley team. And 8% said Nick Pope is not even in the squad. Who do you think should start at right back? Now, this is where people are just foolish. Kyle Walker, Kieran Trippier, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Joe Gomez, or don't know. 5% said don't know. 4% said Gomez. Only 17% said Trent, which is baffling. He's by far England's best right back. 14% said Trippier, which is incredible. He shouldn't even be in the squad. And 59% said Kyle Walker, who's not fit to lace Trent's boots. Left back. The options are Luke Shaw, Kieran Trippier, Joe Gomez, and Jared Branthwaite, and obviously don't know. 9% said don't know. 7% said Branthwaite, I don't think has ever played left back. Certainly not at a high level. 8% said Gomez, despite him clearly being the best option. 33% said Kieran Trippier. and 43% said Luke Shaw. Now, Luke Shaw's not fit, hasn't been fit most of the season, yet people think he should start for England. And this is why England don't win anything, because this is the mindset. Right, centre-back then. So which two players do you think should start at centre-back? 67% of people picked John Stones as one of their two. 40% picked Harry Maguire. Again, Jesus wept. 11% said Mark Guehi, despite him being comfortably the best centre-back on this list. Ezri Konsa got 10%. Lewis Dunk got 12%. Jared Branthwaite got 21%. Gerald Quansah got 5%. Joe Gomez got 16%. And 9% said don't know. Dear, oh dear. Which two players do you think should start in midfield? 71% said Declan Rice. 69% said Jude Bellingham. 17% said Kobbie Mainoo. 9% said Conor Gallagher. 15% said Trent. 3% said Curtis Jones. And 5% said Adam Wharton, with 5% saying they don't know. That's something special, all right. So you want Jude to play in a double pivot with Declan Rice and you think you're going to win something. Fantastic. Where do you think Jude Bellingham should start for England? 26% said central midfield. 63% said attacking midfield. 1% said he shouldn't start. 1% said something else, God knows where. And 9% said they don't know. Okay. Who do you think should start on the left wing? Phil Foden, Cole Palmer, Jack Grealish, Anthony Gordon, Eberechi Eze, James Maddison. 6% said don't know. 6% said Maddison. 4% said Gordon, who's in the best form of, said Eze rather, who's in better form than, well, most of these. 10% said Anthony Gordon, which I like. 16% said Grealish. 14% said Cole Palmer, who'd be horrible on the left. And 45% said Phil Foden. Where do you think Phil Foden should start for England? 2% said they don't think he should start. 2% said other. 10% said don't know. 22% said right wing. 31% said left wing. And 34% said 10. So people want to start him as the 10 with Bellingham and Rice behind. People are playing too much FIFA. Which of these players do you think is the most important for England's success? Phil Foden, Bukayo Saka, Cole Palmer. 65% said Palmer, said Foden, 17 said Saka, 12 said Palmer, 7 said don't know. Who do you think should start in attacking midfield? Foden, Palmer, Bellingham, Eze and Maddison. 10% said don't know, 8% said Maddison, 5% said Eze, 43% did say Jude, 21% said Foden, and 14% said Palmer. Who should start? Right wing, we've got Foden, Palmer, Saka, and Bowen. 12% said don't know. 10% said Bowen, which is incredible. 51% said Saka, 13% said Palmer, and 14% said Foden. And the final question for this group is, this part is, who do you think should start for England as the striker? 80% said Kane, which means 20% of people are idiots. 10% said Watkins, 6% said Ivan Toney, who's been rancid since he came back from suspension, and 5% said they didn't know. Jesus Lord wept. Not only is Harry Kane the England captain, he's also the best player and should be starting regardless of anything else. He is also coming off an amazing season. Which, if any, of these players should be left out of England's starting 11? Please select all that apply. Saka, Palmer, Foden, none, they should all start, and don't know. So 42% said they should all start. So I assume those people want Cole Palmer left wing, or Foden left wing with Palmer as the 10, which again is a FIFA midfield. Don't know said 12%. 5% said Foden shouldn't start. 14% said Saka shouldn't start. And 30% said Palmer shouldn't start. Where do you think Cole Palmer should start? 24% said they don't think he should start. 25% said they don't know. 27% said attacking midfield. 13% said right wing. And 11% said they don't know. Who is England's most important player? 31% said Harry Kane, 21% said Bellingham, 17% said Foden, 6% said Saka, 3% said John Stones, 2% said Pickford. No, sorry, I've read that wrong. Sorry, 6% said Rice, 3% said Saka, 2% said Stones, 4% said Pickford, 1% said somebody else, and 6% they don't know. Do you find it difficult supporting England players from teams that are your Premier League rivals? 10% said yes, and 88% said no, which is good to hear, to be fair. Where do you think is England's biggest strength? The attack, the defence, the manager, the mentality, goalkeeping, and don't know. So 8% said don't know. 5% said the goalkeeper. Imagine thinking Jordan Pickford was England's biggest strength. It gets worse, though. 16% said mentality. Based on what? They've won nothing. They've beaten very few good teams over these last 3 tournaments. 16% said the manager, which is fairly spectacular. 44% said the defence. Oh, I'm an idiot. I've read this. No, I've read the answers wrong. I've read the answers wrong. So it's 6% said the defence, 14% said the manager, 12% said the mentality, 5% said the goalkeeper, 8% said they don't know, and 55% said the attack. So that's fair enough. The next question was about the biggest weakness. 44% said the defence, 16% said the manager, 16% said mentality, 8% said goalkeeper, and 5% said the attack. Okay. How far do you think England will progress? 1% said group stage, 3% said round of 16, 20% said quarterfinals, 46% said semi-finals, 18% said finalists, and 9% said winners, with 3% saying they don't know. What do you think is the minimum requirement for Gareth Southgate to keep his job? 9% said quarterfinals, 31% said semi-finals, 19% said finals, 15% said winners, and 21% said he should keep his job regardless. 6% said they don't know. Is Gareth Southgate the right manager for England? 62% of people said yes. 12% said they don't know, and 26% said no. Would anything other than winning the tournament be a disappointment for England? 51% said yes. 42% said no, and 7% said they don't know. On to Section B. Which team do you think will win the European Championships? 27% said England, 29% said France, 11% said Germany, 3% said Italy, 7% said Spain, 1% said the Netherlands, 3% said Portugal, 2% Belgium, 1% said Denmark. If that means 6 or 7 people had to have said Denmark. 14% said they don't know. Which 2 teams do you think will play in the final? So 41% said England, 50% said France. Remember, people are picking 2 here. 30% said Germany, 11% said Italy, 20% said Spain. 4% said the Netherlands, 9% said Portugal, 7% for Croatia, 2% for Denmark, and 2% for Belgium. 12% said they don't know. Who do you think is the best team at Euro 2024? 31% of people think England are the best team. 29% think France, 6% Germany, 3% Italy, 7% Spain. Why do people think Spain are good? They're not. 1% said Netherlands, 3% each for Belgium and Portugal, 1% for Croatia, and Denmark got some votes, but not enough to be 1%. 15% said they don't know. Who are the biggest dark horses? Croatia got 22%, Denmark 13%, Turkey 4%, Hungary 4%, Switzerland 5%, Austria 1%, Czech Republic 5%. The Czech Republic side squad is awful. I'd actually be surprised if they don't finish bottom of their group. 6% said Poland, 5% said Scotland, 2% said Serbia, Ukraine 5%, Romania 1%, Slovenia 2%, Albania and Georgia 1% each. Slovakia got some votes, but not enough for a full percent. And don't know 23%. Which of the tournament favourites do you think are most likely to underperform? 14% said England, 7% said France, 12% each for Germany and Italy, 11% for Spain, 9% for the Netherlands, 8% for Portugal, 15% for Belgium, and 10% said don't know. How far do you think Scotland will progress? 52% said out in the group. 29% said round of 16. 10% said quarterfinals. 3% said semi-finals. 2% said finals. So I'm guessing Greg Hopcroft, Eddie Gibbs, and their friends were included in this. No percent said winners. Nobody was that silly. 4% said they don't know. If England were knocked out, which team, if any, would you support? So 31% said none. 8% said they don't know. Then Scotland got 2%, Denmark 2%, Croatia 3%, Belgium 3%, Belgium 4%, sorry, Netherlands 5%, Spain 5%, Italy 7%, Germany 4%, and France 6%. None is the only acceptable answer. Who do you think will be the best player? Right, what's wrong with people? 21% said Mbappe, 8% said Kane. 5% of people said Cristiano Ronaldo. 12% said De Bruyne. 1% said Lewandowski. 2% said Van Dijk. 24% said Jude Bellingham. 1% each for Florian Wirtz, Antoine Griezmann, and Ruben Diaz. 10% for Phil Foden. 2% for Rodri. Yet there's a whole bunch of people who think Spain could win it, but only 2% think Rodri, by far their best player, won't be the best player. Musiala got 1% and 11% they didn't know. Who will be the best manager? I mean, the best manager at the tournament by a country mile is Luciano Spalletti. Then Nagelsmann, and then it is a sea of shit. Southgate and Deschamps getting 24% each. Spalletti 10%. Nagelsmann 10%. Spalletti 4%. Roberto Martinez 6%. Ronald Koeman 4%. Rangnick 2%. Steve Clark 1%. Who is your favourite player? %, said Cristiano. My God. What year are we in? 18% said Mbappe, 29% said KDB, 5% said Lewandowski, 8% said Van Dijk, Wirtz, Griezmann, Diaz, Rodri, and Musiala all got percentages. 15% said they don't know. You don't know who your favourite player is. I mean, just walk away and don't answer any more questions. Which goalkeeper do you think is most likely to win the Gold Gloves? 21% said Pickford. 8 said Donnarumma. 4 said Mike Maignan. 19 said Manuel Neuer. 17 said Diogo Costa. 11 said Kasper Schmeichel, who's been awful for years. 3% said Unai Simon. 1% said Jan Sommer, and 26% didn't know. Which player is most likely to win the Golden Boot? 32% said Kane, 30% said Mbappe, 7% are Cristiano perverts, 6% said Bellingham, 2% said Olivier Giroud, 1% said Alvaro Morata. Right, 12% said they didn't know. Player of the tournament, Jude, 21%, Mbappe, 20%, Foden, 14%, Kane, Cristiano, De Bruyne, Lewandowski, Van Dijk, Diaz, they all got votes. Okay, into the last section. Which England squad was the best ever at a major tournament? The World Cup squad in 1966 with Bobby Moore, Bobby Charlton and Jeff Hurst, it got 47%. The 96 Euro squad with Gaza, Eddie Sheringham and Alan Shearer got 19%. The 2004 Euros with Rooney, Beckham and Lampard got 11%. Why Lampard is included, I don't know. 4% said the 2018 World Cup. 13% said the last Euros. 5% said I don't know. They didn't include the 1986 World Cup squad or the 1990 World Cup squad, which were better than both the 04 Euro squad and the 2018 World Cup. I would argue that the 98 World Cup squad was better than the 04 squad and the 18 squad as well. Who do you think is England's best ever player? 25% said Gaza. 24% said Shearer. 21% said Kane. 13% said Rooney. 4% said Teddy Sheringham. I refuse to believe that's true. 3% said other and 10% didn't know. Best ever England goal? Gaza in the Euros against Scotland in 96. Shearer in the same Euros against the Netherlands. That wasn't as good as the Gaza goal. Luke Shaw in the Euro 2020 in 21 final against the Italians. Daniel Sturridge against the Welsh in 2016. I mean, it's Gaza. It's Gaza by a country mile for best ever Euros goal. And what do you think is England's best Euros moment? So 23% said Gaza versus Scotland in 96. 16% said Shearer versus Germany in 2000. Wayne Rooney's performances in Euro 2004, which have become more myth than reality. The 4-1 win over the Netherlands in 96, that's definitely worth strong consideration there. And 1% said other, and 14% said they don't know. So 12% said Rooney, 34% said the Netherlands game, 23% said Gaza, and 16% said Shearer. Yeah, it's that game against the Netherlands. England were incredible in that game. Absolutely incredible in that game against the Netherlands. 4-1, it could have been 7 or 8. Right, I'm going to pick my England team because everyone else is doing it wrong. Everybody knows I'm not a fan, but he will be in goal. So Pickford, Trent at right back, Gomez at left back, Guehi and Stones in the middle. But, excuse me, I've got the hiccups now. That's new and not very exciting. In midfield, Declan Rice and Adam Wharton should be the pairing. Jude Bellingham should be the 10. Phil Foden should be the right winger. Anthony Gordon should be the left winger, and Harry Kane should be the striker, and that should be the England starting 11. Presuming fitness. I'll be back. I'll be back even after this break. Right, welcome back. So we will continue wandering through Premier League teams and having a quick recap of their season and maybe suggesting what they might do this summer. So Aston Villa will be up next. 4th place, incredible achievement for Villa, considering where they were when Emery took over, heading for another relegation scrap, still trying to establish themselves in the Premier League, having returned under Dean Smith and just about surviving the first year. Then doing okay the second year, moving on from Smith midway through the third year, hiring Gerrard, not being very good, and then starting off not being very good again. But under Emery, they've been excellent. They also got to the 4th round of the FA Cup. They went out in the 3rd round of the EFL Cup, so no domestic cup runs. But they did reach the semi-final of the Europa Conference League. As we know, Ollie Watkins put together an immense campaign with 27 goals in all competitions, also hit double figures in assists, and was genuinely tremendous. I thought Pau Torres, aside from the couple of injuries, had a really strong campaign. Moussa Diaby started really well, then fell off a cliff, and then rediscovered himself late in the year. I really liked the January edition of Morgan Rogers after the fact. I wasn't 100% sold on him at the time, but I do think that once he settled in, he really did start to show that he belonged. The loans they didn't work. Zaniolo had some good games, but was mostly disappointment, and Clement Lenglet just isn't very good. They did also sign a Serbian right back, an 18-year-old, who is set to join them, I think, this summer. Don't know much about him. His first name is Costa. His second name is Nedeljkovic. He's meant to be very highly regarded. I know nothing about him. I look forward to seeing if he plays any part next season, but he does feel like one for the future. I still disagree with the decisions they made last summer in selling Aaron Ramsey, Cameron Archer, and Jadon Philogene, all of whom I think are very, very promising players. Now, they did include buyback clauses on all of them, but I think all of them could still be playing important parts in their squad. I think they've all got big, big potential. Now, Ramsey had a difficult season with injuries. Archer showed promise but was surrounded by dross. Philogene was excellent for Hull. I feel like Villa had this really good crop of academy players come through, including, obviously, Jacob Ramsey and Carney Chukwuemeka. There's 4 years, I think, between the oldest and the youngest in the group. And yet, Jacob Ramsey's the only one that they've sort of kept. Tim Irogbunam is still there, but he hasn't broken through. And he may well go this summer. It's disappointing because they did have such a good crop. To end up selling them rather than giving them opportunities is just a bit disappointing for me. You look at the league campaign, obviously they got hammered by Newcastle on the first day of the season. Then they themselves hammered Everton. They beat Burnley comfortably. They got dominated at Anfield. Then they beat Palace, beat Chelsea, beat Brighton, and seemed to find their groove. They got a draw away to Wolves. They beat West Ham. They beat Luton. Bad result away, losing to Nottingham Forest. They beat Fulham. They beat Spurs at Spurs. That was when Spurs were having their wobble. They drew away to Bournemouth, who'd found form at that point and were looking like a good team. Beginning to look like a good team, I should say. Then they beat City and Arsenal back-to-back at home within 4 days of each other. And that was sort of the moment where you really had to say, top four could be on here. Now, I will say this. They're very fortunate that Spurs collapsed in the back half of the season because they lost 7 games out of their last 20. And they drew 6. That is not... Sorry, they drew 5. They drew 5. That is not ideal form. 8 wins, 5 draws, 7 defeats in your last 20 normally shouldn't get you top 4. They've done a lot of the legwork in the early half of the season for sure. They'd only lost 3 games and drawn 2 with 13 wins through the first 15 or through the first 18 games. That's what got them over the line. That's what got them over the line. But they did end the season in quite poor form. 2 draws, 2 defeats, and obviously 2 defeats to Olympiacos. So 2 draws and 4 defeats in the last 6. They ran out of steam. The injury to Boubacar Kamara was massive. They never looked the same once he got hurt. He is not only their best player, but also their most important player. With him, they looked like a legitimate top 4 team. Once he got hurt, they didn't look anything like it. They fell over the line because Spurs collapsed. He got injured in that game against United. Now, their form had gone a little bit wobbly then, but after he got hurt, they won 7 games, lost 4, and drew 4. So less than 50% win rate across their last 15 league games. And before that, he had missed a couple of games that hadn't gone well for them as well. You'd also look at Europe. After he gets hurt, they looked poor in Amsterdam against Ajax, but hammered Ajax at home because Ajax are crap. They beat Lille at home, then lost to Lille away, and then lost both games to Olympiacos. So they won 2, lost 3, and drew 1 of their 6 European games without him. Like, that's not good form, but that shows how important he is to that team. And given he got hurt in February, you wouldn't really expect him back till about October, November time. And that's quite late in the season. Like, they're going to have to start really well. They're going to have to address some issues in the squad this summer. They've got a really good starting goalkeeper in Emi Martinez. I know they're quite high on Joe Gauci, the Australian they brought in. I haven't seen anything of him, so we'll see how he is. I wouldn't be a fan of Robin Olsen. They've got some other young goalkeepers on the books, and maybe one of them steps forward. Defensively, I like Ezri Konsa. Everybody knows that. I prefer him at right back and centre back in this team. So if I was them, I'd be looking for a right side centre back and upgrade on Diego Carlos, who I'd look to move on. Matty Cash is fine as a backup. Mings comes back and he'll be back up to Pau Torres. Moreno and Digne at left back are what would be colloquially known as 2 cheeks of the same arse. They're good going forward. They're not good defensively. I think Villa should be looking for an upgrade there. Callum Chambers is proving to be a useful squad player, so you might as well keep him around. Courtney House, you might as well move on. There are some other good young talents there. Sil Swinkels, the Dutch centre-back, is quite highly thought of, as is Kane Kessler-Hayden, the young right-back, and obviously the young Serbian right-back they've brought in. So for me, I'd be looking to sell Carlos, sell one of the left-backs, probably Digne, who's got shorter time left in his actually, they both only have 2 years left on their contracts. I'd sell Digne. Digne would be the one for me to go. And I'd be looking to buy a left-back and a right-side centre-back. They've been linked with Conor Gallagher. It will be a lot of money for a player that doesn't start for them, frankly. You're going to get Emi Buendia back, so he gives you another option in the number 10 spot. You've got John McGinn, you've got Yuri Tielemans, you've got Irubunam, Lamar Bogard. They're quite they've been pushing for a while as an option of defensive midfield, wait and see on him. Douglas Luiz could be sold because he could bring in a big fee, which might help them out of their FFP hole. So maybe they have to do that. Whatever they do, they have to keep Jacob Ramsey and they have to keep Boubacar Kamara. And you build your midfield around those two. And then attacking-wise, you obviously have to keep Watkins. Diaby is a very good player. Duran, I think, has big potential. Morgan Rogers has potential. Leon Bailey really kicked on last season. That group is good enough. You'd maybe want to add one more, but Buendia can also play wide. So maybe you don't need it. I think focus on the defence, sort out centre-back and left-back, maybe look to add a quality backup holding midfielder in case, well, Kamara's going to miss the first 2, 3, 4 months of the season. So you need to have somebody that can step in there and play that role. And everything else, I think, is pretty good at the moment. You've got a lot of players you can get rid of. I know Morgan Sanson has moved permanently to Nice. You've got to get rid of Coutinho. You've got to get rid of Den Donker. I don't think Napoli are going to keep him, but you'll find a buyer for him. But maybe then tap into some more of your young players, push more of your academy players into the first team picture and see who's ready. Kerr Smith, the young Scottish centre-back, is now 19. I think he was 17 when you brought him in. Get him involved in the first team squad. He might be someone that, as a fifth centre-back, could be useful for you. They've got the right manager. They're moving in the right direction. I would expect a step backwards next year in the league, like we saw with Newcastle. But I think Villa are establishing themselves as a European team for the next few years. And I think that's a huge step forward. If I was them, I'd look to target one of the domestic cups next season and try and bring some silverware to the club. You've had incredible success in the past, 7-time league champion, not since 81. You're not going to win that anytime soon. European Cup winner in 82. You're not winning that anytime soon. You've won the FA Cup 7 times, but you haven't won it in nearly 70 years. At the end of next season, it'll be 68 years. That'll be a nice drought to break. You've also won the League Cup 5 times, but next season, by the end of it, will be 29 years. So it's been 28 years since you won the League Cup and 67 years since you won the FA Cup. Target one of them. Try and win one of them. Because for Villa, at Emery, winning one of those domestic trophies would be the same as for Liverpool, Arsenal, United, City, Chelsea winning a league title. It really would. For that fan base, given what they've been through, it would absolutely be the reward they deserve. I really like the squad. There's work to be done, but I like what's there. I love the goalkeeper. I think, and like I say, I think there's 2 really good pieces in that defence with Konza and Torres. There's 2 great pieces in midfield. Douglas Luiz can be a very good piece if you can keep him. Diaby can be a really, really good piece as well. Watkins is a great piece to have. McGinn had a really good season. I still think if you want to progress further, he's going to be one you have to replace. He can drop into a squad role, though, and be very valuable to you that way. And 3 players. 3 players, really, I think Villa need over the next 2 years to really get a team that can go again to win, to get into top 4. 3 players, centre-back, left-back, and 1 in like attacking midfield or a second striker. I've said before, I'd love to see them go and get Ivan Toney and play Toney with Watkins because they'd be horrible to play against. Absolutely horrible to play against. And I think their skill sets would mesh really well. And you could flip into a 4-3-3 in-game if needed, with Watkins left, Diaby right, and Tony through the middle. Because Ramsey can easily fit into a midfield three with Luiz and Kamara. Villa moving in the right direction. These owners have delivered on pretty much every promise they've made. They're very ambitious. They're willing to put their own money in. Big steps forward are to come. Big challenges are to come. But like I say, for them next season, go and try and win one of the domestic cups, and I think you're going to be in a great position to do it. I'll be back after the break. Right, welcome back. So, Manchester City are ploughing ahead with their attempts to sue the Premier League, claiming that they're fighting on behalf of the small clubs against the elite, which is just such a bizarre thing, talking about the tyranny of the majority. The rules that were implemented were not implemented by just the other big clubs. They were implemented by a 2/3 majority vote. The majority of the league also believes that you're cheats. We have there is either chairman, Khaldoun Al-Mubarak, says he is frustrated at the club's on-field achievements being accompanied by repeated reminders of the 115 charges lodged against them. You cheated. You cheated for years and years and years, and are still doing it now, and are going to court in order to allow you to do it even further. Of course, nobody respects what you've done on the pitch, because everybody understands how you've done it. And if your accounts were really opened up, people would have an absolute field day with what you're paying players and how you're paying them. It's no surprise that Pep is looking at a way out next summer. It's no surprise that KDB is talking about a way out. They don't want to be there when the shit hits the fan and all of a sudden you're staring at relegation, expulsion from the Premier League. The Football League don't have to take you in, so that could mean non-league football. Your success could be wiped from the history books, and in truth should be. And those are the facts. And this lawsuit that they're bringing is utterly frivolous nonsense and is just meant as a distraction or an attempt to strong-arm the Premier League into dropping the charges against you. Speaking of dropping things, Wolves have scrapped their price hike for child season tickets for the upcoming season. There was quite a lot of backlash. The ticket rises were pretty significant, it must be said. Pretty significant. But they've decided now to remove the increases for kids under the age of 14, which is the right move. Get more kids going to football. Get more kids actually watching games rather than watching compilations and then going on Twitter and talking absolute nonsense and forcing me to remind them that they know nothing about the game. The CAF has admitted that WAFCON and AFCON nightmare scheduling problems. Organisers of Africa's... WAFCON, by the way, is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. WAFCON organisers have admitted that they face a scheduling nightmare, but dates for forthcoming editions are closer to being agreed. Okay. So there's meant to be a Women's African Cup of Nations this year, and there's still been no announcement of when. That doesn't sound good. They had hoped, I know, that AFCON 2025 would be in the summer of 2025. And now it looks like that's going to be pushed back until early 2026 when everybody hates it because of FIFA's new 32-team Club World Cup, which, by the way, is absolutely awful. Who should be the next Leicester City boss? Graham Potter was leading the way in a poll, followed by David Moyes and Steve Cooper. They'd be the three I'd be looking at as well. I don't think Moyes should jump straight in, though. I think Potter's the one. I really do think Potter's the one that is the best fit there. Carlos Corberán, I like. I think he's done really good work at West Brom. Did well at Huddersfield. Steve Cooper, I really like. And then there's Ruud van Nistelrooy, who we've only got one season of evidence on. It was good, not great. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out. Looks like Leicester are also going to have to sell Kieran Dewsbury-Hall. He's a very, very good footballer. A very, very good footballer. And a Premier League club will snap him up. I know Leicester are a Premier League club now as well, but another Premier League club will snap him up at a good price and get 5-6 really good years out of him. Or potentially, given he is 25, they might get 2 really good years and then sell him at a profit. But he could play for most clubs. He's very, very good. Manchester United are talking to Johnny Evans about a new contract. I will take you back 12 months, where Johnny Evans joined Manchester United to train while looking for a club in the Championship, then signed, I believe, a 1-month contract so he could play with them on their summer tour, ended up signing a 1-year contract, and then ended up being their best centre-back across the season that we've just finished. Johnny Evans is now 36 and played a total of 30 games this past season, which was more than he'd played in either of the previous 2 seasons for Leicester. Played also 23 league games, which was more than he'd played in the previous 2 seasons for Leicester. I like Johnny Evans. He's a solid citizen, but that's just not a good look for United. Which records could Cristiano break at Euro 2024? Who cares? He's holding his team back. He's already the all-time top scorer with 14. Because he's played in, what's this now? 04, 08, 12, 16, 20. This is his 6th European Championships. Michel Platini played in, I think, 1 and scored 9 goals. Antoine Griezmann's played in 2 and scored 7 goals. Alan Shearer scored 7 goals at 3 European Championships. Romelu Lukaku scored 6 at 2. Platini scoring 9 at 1 is just remarkable considering he's a midfielder. But yeah, Cristiano with 14 goals in 5 championships so far. Thierry Henry, Zlatan, Wayne Rooney, Nuno Gomes, Ruud van Nistelrooy and Alvaro Morata also have 6. All-time appearance record holder, yeah, because he's played it the most. Pepe is joint second on that list with Gervitino, and he's also in this squad. Nobody else who's made more than 15 is in the squad. The others is in the national squad for this one. The others who've played 16 or more, Van der Sar. Oh, Rui Patricio is there. He's the backup goalkeeper for Portugal still. Iniesta, Alba, Lilian Thuram and Cesc all of 16. Chiellini and Buffon 17. Bonucci 18. Schweinsteiger 18. Pepe and Moutinho 19. And Cristiano is 25. Most chances created at European Championships. He's currently second behind Luis Figo. One ahead of Mesut Ozil. Karol Gaborski at 39, Zidane 38, De Bruyne, Cesc, and Deco 36. De Bruyne obviously is in his national squad. None of the rest are. They're all long retired. But Figo having 42 and Cristiano only having 41 does tell a tale. Cristiano is the second oldest player at these European Championships, I believe. Pepe is the oldest. The oldest goal scorer in the tournament in history is Vika Vastic for Austria against Poland in 2008. So Cristiano should break that record. Pepe could also break it, obviously, if he scores. Most assists, he's got 6. Karol Poborski has 6 in much fewer appearances. Hazard has 5. De Bruyne has 5. He can break that record too. He's more likely, I would say, to break that record. Robin, Beckham, Figo, Fabregas, and Schweinsteiger all have 5. Who cares? But the rest of us, yeah. I mean, who cares? On to the gossip. Arsenal are looking at Girona winger Viktor Shankov, who's also wanted by AC Milan. He would actually make a lot of sense for Arsenal as a backup to Bukayo Saka. He would make a lot of sense. Chelsea are confident they can rival Arsenal in the race to sign Benjamin Sesko. Manchester City and Argentina striker Julian Alvarez is a target for Atletico Madrid. I could see him wanting out as well because he doesn't play enough. I would imagine for his own liking and desire at Atleti, or at City, rather. Manchester United are interested in signing Jared Brandtwaite, Gleison Bremer, or Jean-Claire Todibo. Todibo and Bremer are quite similar. Todibo's a lot better. Bremer and the Gnome would be hilarious together. West Ham are trying to derail Bayer Leverkusen's attempt to sign Alex Garcia. That would be a really good signing for West Ham, to be fair. The Hammers want to sign Vitória Guimarães and Portugal winger Jota Silva. I do like him. He's very good. Tottenham are open to Jed Spence joining Genoa permanently. He had a pretty good time there. He was pretty good, to be fair to him. I do like Jed Spence. I'd be happy if Genoa got him permanently. Tosin Adarabioyo has undergone his medical at Chelsea. Manchester United are set for talks with Jadon Sancho before deciding his future. He's not staying if Ten Hag is staying. That's what we know. Birmingham City have held talks with Frank Lampard about becoming their new manager. Lampard has also talked to Burnley. Burnley should take a hard pass on that one. I would have a lot of respect from if he went to Birmingham. I would. I'd have a lot of respect from if he was willing to drop down to League One. I'd have a lot of respect from him. He's not nearly good enough to manage at the Premier League level. Go to League One, learn, get them promoted, go into the Championship, learn, try and get them promoted again, and then we'll see in 4 or 5 years. Alan Pardew says he would be interested in the Burnley job. Of course he would. Of course he would. But that's only because he wants to be centre of attention. But nobody should hire Alan Pardew. Let's look at his career in recent years. So obviously he was at Newcastle. We all remember being at Newcastle, signing that ridiculous contract and getting sacked. He then went to Crystal Palace. He was there for just shy of 2 years and got sacked. And since then, he has managed West Brom for 21 games and been sacked after winning only 3 of them. He managed ADO Den Haag for 8 games and was sacked after winning only 1 of them. He managed CSKA Sofia for 7 games and was sacked after winning only 1 of them. And then he managed Aris in Greece for 22 games and was sacked after winning only 9 of them. So, yeah. He's not good. He's not good at all. And hasn't been for quite some time. So, nobody, like, even if you want to say he did okay at Palace for a while, fine. Like, fine. But by the end of it, it was a mess. And it's nearly 8 years since he left there. And in the 8 years since then, he's managed 58 games and won 14 of them. Like, let's all take a moment and be serious here. He's not a football manager anymore. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is wanted by Besiktas, I doubt it. Nobody wants Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Roma's 30-year-old Argentine forward Paulo Dybala is open to a Premier League move. That'd be a hard pass for me. Really good player. Super high wages, always hurt. No, thank you. Nacho will meet Real Madrid to discuss his future. His contract expires this summer. My assumption with Nacho is if he wants to stay, they will give him a new contract. Or if they want him to stay, he will sign a new contract. It would only be if both parties wanted to part that would come to an end, I believe. Tim Ream is in talks with Charlotte FC about a move to the MLS side. That makes sense for him at 36 to head back stateside. It was really good for him to have a legitimate Premier League season because he'd had a few bites at it and been dreadful in the first two. And then, not this past season, but the season before, he was really good for Fulham. And he'd actually had 3 bites at it because he was at Bolton for 4 years and was poor in the Premier League for them as well. A very good championship defender who was never quite good enough for the Premier League until the 22-23 season when he was good. This past season, he was okay. Obviously played for New York Red Bulls to begin his career. But he's from St. Louis, Missouri, so he probably wants to be closer to home. Now, Charlotte to St. Louis is still going to be a hell of an adventure. What are we looking at? Charlotte to St. Louis. It is, if you want to drive it, it's an 11.5-hour drive. You head east out of Charlotte, head into Nashville, Tennessee, and then you head west out of Charlotte, not east. If you go east out of Charlotte, you're going to end up in the ocean. You go west out of Charlotte, you go to Nashville, you go northwest out of Nashville, and you end up in St. Louis. It's an 11.5-hour flight, but it's like a $65 flight. So it's a short plane journey if he wants to be closer to home. And if he wants to go on a road trip, he has that option as well. It's actually funny. Like, you always think of Missouri and Kansas being in the South. I don't know why, but you do, or I do anyway. And you think of North Carolina not being as southern. Now, part of this is because Americans can't geography. Like, for example, the notion of the Midwest, which includes Ohio, which is very, very much in the east of the country. Like, very, very much in the east. Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota. These are all considered the Midwest. They are all east of the midpoint of the United States. If you were to draw a line down the middle of the United States, Minnesota would be east of that line. You would actually just draw Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri. What state is that? Why don't I know that? Arkansas and Louisiana. They would all be in the east. As would Mississippi and Tennessee and Alabama. They'd all be in the east. And then you'd have Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, both Dakotas, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, Nevada, and California would be in the West. If Americans could geography, the Midwest would be like the western point of North Dakota, the eastern point of Montana, and such. Colorado, in a way, would be Midwest. But no, because they can't geography. And St. Louis and Missouri in general is slap bang in the middle of the country. Like, St. Louis and Kansas are literally the middle of your country. Iowa and Nebraska, I'll accept them in the middle as well. Both in terms of north, south, east, west. Those 4 states are the middle of your country. The Midwest. Iowa. Like, no. Just no. Anyway, if he wants to go home, he should go home. And that's it. Florian Wirtz of Bayer Leverkusen has dismissed speculation about his future and says he is concentrating on playing at Euro 2024. That is the end of the gossip. That is the end of today's geography lesson. Thank you, as always, for listening. Thank you to Skybet for sponsoring today's podcast. And, of course, if you are engaging with gambling, do remember to do so responsibly. Skybet is for people aged 18 and above. If you are struggling with gambling or are curious about gambling, do visit begambleaware.org and educate. Take care. Bye-bye.
Sports Social Podcast Network.